I built the 5 stages of freedom, or the 5 stages of income rather, as a way to visualize like where I'm at and where I want to go, and just a way to understand how income truly works. So there's stage one, I call like just hourly pay. You work an hour, you get paid for an hour of work, whatever that pay may be. You may be a line cook, or you may be a nurse working at a hospital making $75 an hour. It doesn't matter. You're getting paid by the hour of work, right? So the catch there is you don't get paid if you're not working. Okay. So then there's stage two, which is your salary, which is typically getting paid for a responsibility, a set of tasks of some kind, right? So you're paid in order to manage this department or whatever it may be. And that gives you a little bit of flexibility in your time and how you use your time. But ultimately, typically there's still some sort of 40 hours a week roughly tied to it. Maybe there's a little bit of pay beyond that, but also that typically means you need to be a little bit more available. So if you're not at work, you may still have to respond to a couple emails and take care of a few things just to make sure that your role and responsibilities are fully taken care of, right? That's what we all aspire to be, right? That's what everything in school talks about is, hey man, go work for a big company, become a mid-level manager, and then move your way up into a C-suite and da 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 da. But ultimately, it's still the same trap as hourly pay, really. You're still getting paid for your time. It's just slightly more flexible. Maybe it's a little bit better pay. It's fantastic. Maybe it even comes with a super cool title that makes it sound awesome to all your friends. You know what I mean? But ultimately, you're still getting paid for your time. And if you're getting paid for your time, you can't be free. Someone else controls your paycheck. You're ultimately not in control of your time anymore, right? So that's stage two. That's where most people kind of stop. Stage three is what I call transactional. This is typically what a lot of people, if you're a high performer, a lot of times you get frustrated by the lack of meritocracy in stage one and stage two income, right? So you want to be compensated because you're a badass. You work faster than people. You know things better. You're speedy. You execute quickly. Or you're in something that compensates for a result, typically, like sales, right?
Okay.
So
It's like commission
house
based.
flipping works kind of the same way,
Yeah.
right? House flipping is kind of the same way, which is fantastic. You can make a lot of money in a transactional income structure, and a lot of people do. Lawyers are kind of a transactional. They can also be paid hourly, but there's different ways that they get structured it. But ultimately, it comes to like you make a commission, you get paid for some sort of result. This is where a lot of people I know make a lot of money. But they're also stuck in the grind and the hustle because if leads aren't coming in, if there's no real continuous generation of income, you can't stack income on each other. So to get that sale, now you have to start over at zero with a new lead to get another sale, right? And eventually some companies have a little bit of compensation structure where you get residual income from previous sales and stuff. Sure. But ultimately, once that runs out, you're done. You still have to show up to keep making your 500 grand a year or
Yeah.
700 grand a year. You know what I mean? It's pretty special. And then people think that, hey, I'm sick of working for someone with a salary. I'm going to jump into this kind of transactional income. But then they get themselves stuck there because they've expanded their lifestyle now that they're making 300, 500, $700,000 a year as a realtor or a loan officer or whatever it might be. They get themselves stuck there. And now they have to keep working that hard, keep grinding in order to keep making that money.
Yeah.
Right. And then stage four, this is what I think is the crown jewel of where it really shifts people's mindsets from the traditional models that they understand. Because stage one, stage two, and stage three, everyone's kind of familiar with it. And some people are a little bit afraid to go into stage three because of the risks, because it can be kind of feast and famine times, depending on the economy or markets or whatever it might be, right? Or depending on their product or whatever. But stage two feels nice and secure because it's the salary, but someone can fire you tomorrow for downsizing or whatever it is. But stage 4, this is where it comes from ownership. You own something that, yes, you're involved with. I call it semi-passive income. Stage 4 income is semi-passive. And what I mean by that is it's semi-passive because there might be a heavier upfront lift to get it established, to get it moving, to get systems in place. But once the systems are in place, it just takes your light touches here and there to keep the machine moving. Make sense?
Yep.
So this is what I think, this is that big paradigm shift for most people is like, once you get in it, once I got my first multifamily deal, I was like, holy crap, this is real. I turned a little bit of heavy upfront labor and effort and learning and things like that into $2,500 a month that never really went away.
Yeah.
And all it took was me maintaining it. Yeah, the first 3 months were heavier, right? Like 10, 20 hours a week. But then after that, it was like 2 to 3 hours a week. And I was still making $2,500 a month. And if I take that in compensation for my per hour from what I was making in the Army, I'll take the $2,500 a month for 7 to 9 hours of work all day.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, it frees up all that other time to do something else with.
Exactly. So, and I think that's the big thing. And then, but it also allows you to compound and scale your income based upon either streams of income or owning that system and machine that allows you to scale your income within it. And that's kind of what some of the other frameworks show you how to do. But ultimately, it's like, all right, well, where do I want to be? I want to be in the stage 4 income. I want to be able to have control. I want to be able to actually have something that produces income. So that way I can eventually leave my job. And I want something that, you know, can grow in some value so I can create net worth and wealth and stuff for my family.
Yeah.
And you can't do that. You can't sell your job. Your job has no value on the marketplace. So in order to do that, even if you do that, you can do that in a stage 4 income system, right? And then beyond that is stage 5 income. That's purely passive. And most people chase this passive income thing, which is all a fallacy ultimately, because there is still some management you need to do. So let's call it a stage 4. Truly passive income is when you've dumped $10 million, you've sold all your assets and all the equity, and you have $10 million in equity, and you dump that into a portfolio, and now that's just kicking you income.
Yeah.
That's truly passive income. Anything else is stage 4 semi-passive income, right? Because you typically still need to understand it. You need to be operationally involved a little bit. So that's my 5 stages of income. And the cool part about it is you can be in all of them at once.
Yeah. I was going to ask you about that. Like, do you have to just be in one, or do you recommend being in multiple?
You can be in multiple, and that's kind of the cool thing about it. So while I was in the Army, I was a stage 2 income, right? But I was also building my stage 4. So I own stuff in stage 4 and stage 2. And then for a little bit, I would do some sales work for a guy because it helped kick me up some cash so I could do other stuff, right?
Yeah.
So then I was in stage 2, stage 3, and stage 4 all at once. But then I had a dividend producing stock. So that's a stage 5.
Yeah.
Right. So that's it, is like, it's just ultimately like, okay, what do all of my income streams, where do they come from, and how much of my time, effort, and skill is involved?
Yeah. Yeah. That's super helpful. As you explained that, I was envisioning the same thing. Like, I could see myself, like, prior to the Army, you know, working high school jobs, stage 1, you know, and then Army, it's more like management as an officer. And then, you know, as I got out of the Army, then I started flipping, you know, stage 3. And I was a loan officer for a while. To your point, you use that as an example. Stage 3 commission, and then transition from flipping, which I thought was investing initially, to short-term rentals, which we were heavily managing in the beginning, to your point. And then now, I mean, we have 43 listings total, and we spend less time on those than we did with one in the beginning, because we just have systems in place to manage all the day-to-day. So,
but the key was to own the system, right?
Exactly.
Was to own the potential of it, build it, learn it, so that way you can implement those systems. Because your first one, I'm sure your first deal was a shit show at first, right?
Exactly.
It was a mess. You're learning, and it's scary, and you don't know what the hell you're doing. But eventually, you've mitigated enough risk, and you learn what creates risk, which is just lack of predictability. And ultimately, we all know that lack of predictability is really just a function of knowledge and control. So if
Yeah.
you can learn stuff and you can control it, which you can't control a job, let's be real.
Yeah.
So as long as it's a system that you own, because then you can control it. And
Right.
then you have to have the parameters and all your legal agreements that you truly do have some sort of control, right?
Yeah.
And that was it for you guys, is because you did
Yeah.
exactly that. And that's the thing, is the paths are infinite. And
Yeah.
that's what I want people to understand. The paths to financial freedom are infinite. I'm a big real estate fan also, right? Because of I like the way the metrics and the time and all the other things kind of compound together.
Hmm.
That's my favorite also. But man, the paths even within real estate are infinite
Yeah.
almost. So, and it's just something that people just need to understand, the underlying structures and frameworks, which is why I wrote the book. So that way, all right, as long as you follow these frameworks and these principles, it's going to work
Yeah.
predictably. It will predictably get you where you want to go. Just stick with it, pivot as you need to, along another path. That's fine, because it all happens, right? Starting to flip and then you pivot. I started in multifamily, pivoted, went short-term rental kind of stuff too, pivoted, went to self-storage.
Yeah, and that there was such an epiphany moment going from stage 3 to stage 4 when we were flipping before, and every dollar we made, it was from constant hustle, to all of a sudden having my first short term rental, and it was really it was a pretty good cash flowing property. It wasn't going to change my life, but at the same time, I recognized the fact that, okay, this is coming in regardless, and I
Mm-hmm.
have to put in some effort, and I saw a path where I could reduce that effort, add more of these, and I could see now a direct path to where this is going to change my life. Like, this is going to support me forever, if I just keep at it and just stack these on top of each other. And to your point about saleability too. Now, we have a good system in place that we control, that I don't run the day to day. So if
Yep.
we had to, or decided that we wanted to sell it, we could sell the whole package, because it's just a stream of income that's
Mm-hmm.
managed by others, altogether. And I think there's a ton of value to that. So yeah, that's super helpful to kind of get that visual around the different stages, and that kind of ties in too to the freedom metrics, uh,
Mm-hmm.
or matrix, I should say,
Yeah.
which is kind of a simple way to map where your money is working for you versus against you,
Mm-hmm.
and then what move to make. So how does that work? How can people use this?
So the freedom matrix is exactly the, how do I get to a stage 4 income? Like, what do I need to buy? Because that's the natural question is, okay, yes, I want a stage 4 or stage 5 income. What do I do now? Okay. Well, you need to buy something that fits. And that's what I was like, all right, how can I visually and methodically show this in a way based upon what I've learned and my little bumps in the road? And then also what I've watched tons of my friends and other people like you do, that's been predictably successful.
Mm,
Okay. It has to cash flow day one. It has to be able to appreciate, and you have to have control. Those three factors have to be. So I was like, all right, well, then what are all these other things that people buy and do with their money or invest in or whatever that they think gets them where they want to go, but ultimately doesn't? And
mm,
it all came down to those three factors. It's a mix primarily of the two biggest questions, right? Is, does what I buy go up in value or down in value? And does it cash flow or doesn't it cash flow? Okay. Name anything that anybody could ever buy and it fits within those questions. And obviously, two questions, four possible combinations of answers there creates the four quadrants of the freedom matrix. And
mm.
that's what I was trying to do, is how can I simplify it with two questions as to, and then adding a third question, the control question, right? Is how can I get someone to understand what are the basic characteristics of an asset that you need to buy in order to do this? Because asset is this weird blanket term, and you know this, right? Rich Dad Poor Dad kind of does a cool thing where he's like, all right, does it put money in your pocket or take money out, right? That's a great way. It simplified that thing, because asset is really an accounting term that means anything that has some sort of value that you could sell. A business asset is a car, the furniture, guns, jewelry, anything that you could sell is an asset, right?
Yeah.
And technically fits into your net worth, but that's confusing, and that kind of gets people thinking these weird ways and gives them these outs and mental excuses to go buy expensive stuff and think they're buying assets, when ultimately what we want to understand is the flow of money. And that's truly what it comes down to is all right, so if we your typical middle class family, what do? They buy cars, their house, they buy fancy stuff, maybe a little bit here and there, they buy clothes, they buy that stuff, and then they invest in typically some sort of stock portfolio within a retirement account, right? An
Mm-hmm.
IRA, a Roth IRA, a 401k, whatever it may be. So all of that though requires all of their money to be trapped. It doesn't give any cash flow. It traps all of their money until they're of retirement age. So there is no way for you to get freedom from doing that until you're 59 and a half or 65 or whatever your target date fund maybe has,
Yeah.
right? So now okay, well, if that doesn't get me there, what does? So that's kind of what I broke it down as. If you visualize, a cross matrix there, basically I have it where on the left side is non-cash flowing and on the right side is cash flowing. On the top is appreciating and on the bottom is depreciating, goes down in value. So again, those are the questions, right? Does it go up in value or down in value? Does it cash flow or doesn't it cash flow? So everything that most middle class families buy, keep them trapped because it stays on the left side of the matrix. It may go up in value, but it doesn't cash flow. But it also, a lot of what they buy goes down in value.
Yeah.
And they buy it with credit. So now if something goes down in value and you buy it with credit, now you get the interest hit and the depreciation hit, right? Which robs you of your wealth. But then everything else that you buy, if you're dumping money into your 401k or whatever, which is great, don't get me wrong, I get it. But ultimately, it just robs you of your freedom because you are trading your time for that money that you're putting in there. I'd rather just trade my time learning how to buy an asset that gives me income now and gives me income forever. And
Yeah.
then will also give me appreciation because that's ultimately what the stock market does. Everybody says, oh, it gives me, compounding interest. No, it doesn't. It just appreciates. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Unless you're getting dividends and then you buy more stock shares with the dividends, then yeah, that compounds. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, so ultimately it's just really a way. And I'll make sure that's also on the bonus sheet for your listeners too, so that way it's the visual of it, because I want them to be able to see it as we're talking about it a little bit.
Yeah.
So I'll make sure I put that on there for them.
Awesome.
But it's really just staying to the upper right is the goal.
Yeah.
Something that appreciates, something that creates cash flow, and something that you have control of. Because why the control is so powerful is it moves into my 4 drivers of appreciation, right? Which I talk about, which, I can touch on real fast. But if it cash flows, that means I could buy a business, and real estate's a little slower than a business. We all know that, but it also doesn't real estate appreciates faster than a business ultimately. Like the value goes up faster. It's got a higher multiple, right? So buying what I call freedom assets it's something that truly an asset that will buy your freedom, meaning it has to cash flow, which means I can now buy one. And like you did with your short-term rentals, you bought one that created, $2,000 a month in cash flow. Then you bought another one that created another 2,000. So now you're making 4,000. Then you bought another one and it creates more. And it allows you to compound your income to the point where you can actually become free in typically 5 to 10 years is what I say. And that's not a get rich quick. That's a realistic timeline based upon how fast you want to move. But if you're buying stuff that goes up in value, cash flows from day one, and you can control that income, especially, you can then make the value go up and all this other stuff, then you truly can build your freedom pretty quickly, especially if you buy assets like my first storage deal, right? A lot of effort,
Mm.
but I ultimately had control over driving that income up, which drove the appreciation value up, which allowed me to buy more income. And I literally, with that one deal, if I bought it myself and it was like $110,000 down payment, a lot of people have that. If you bought that one deal and were willing to put in the work, you could have made your net worth go up $2.5, $3 million in the course of 2 years and have a $10,000, $12,000 a month plus net income, $144,000 a year forever.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, then you let the time do the work, right, of compounding because rents go up, rates go up because of
Hmm.
inflation and all the other things. So that only works for you, man. You know,
Yeah.
you get it.
Yeah. Yeah.